Hi guys, and welcome to the next episode of Sales Unfiltered. I'm so excited to be sat on the couch with Sim Riordan, Head of Sales at Octopus Moneycoach. Thank you for joining me. If you want to give a quick introduction to the viewers that might not know who they are, I mean, shame on you if you don't, because this woman's incredible, but if you want to do a quick intro.
Hi everyone, I'm Sim. I head up sales at Octopus Moneycoach. We're transforming the lives of 1 million people across the UK with better financial well-being. I've been in sales for about 13 years now, with a psychology background, also recruitment and talent management. So really happy to be here today.
Really excited for this conversation, and it's something that sits really close to my heart. Being a woman, we're talking about why more women aren't in leadership positions. So there's a statistic out there that only 18% of leadership positions are filled by women. How do you feel when you hear this statistic?
Outraged.
Yeah.
I think it's obviously changed even over my lifetime. It's positive to see that it is improving and it is increasing, but 18% is crazy when you think about the fact that more than 50% of the UK's population is female or identifies as female. So you'd hope it would be more represented.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's really difficult as women coming into the industry, if they don't see someone that looks like themselves in a management position, they feel like they can't achieve that. So a lot of it is to do with role models and the lack of. I'd love to know, starting this conversation, Sim, who was your role model growing up?
Oh, growing up, it would definitely have been both my parents. They were incredibly hardworking, immigrants to the UK. My mum is definitely someone who's a strong character. And so whenever I need to kind of have a strong conversation, I always channel my inner Sim's mum.
Yeah, what's her name?
Janie.
Your inner Janie.
Yeah,
we all
my
need
inner
an
Janie.
inner Janie.
She's a very strong, powerful woman. And she was definitely a role model for me.
Brilliant. And what does she do? Was she in the industry or
she worked for the United Nations, so she was working for the IMO.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And that probably helped you realise that actually you could do great things in your career because your mum's done that.
She definitely pushed me a lot, yeah, I'll say that.
Good. Oh, she pushed him up.
Pushy mum, yeah.
Amazing. But so with this lack of female representation, what would you say are the main reasons for why you think more women don't step up into leadership and management?
If I think back to my own experience, I remember looking at what could my career options be in the previous organisation I worked for, and it never even occurred to me that I could be a sales leader. I was working in sales, but I didn't identify with any of the men above or around me, and it didn't even occur to me because I thought, well, I'm not like them, not from a gender perspective, but even just from kind of my personality and the way that I kind of talked and worked with others in the workplace. So I think I was kind of surprised when a colleague approached me and suggested that that's something I could be good at, because I was like, well, I'm not like them at all.
Yeah.
So I really have experienced firsthand that if you don't kind of see those role models in front of you, it just doesn't occur to you that could be something you could do.
It's mad, and you're absolutely smashing it now. So it's crazy to think that you had that. Do you still, I mean, obviously that's a lot of that being probably lack of confidence and imposter syndrome. Completely. And not being able to see yourself in that position. But now being in a management position, do you still suffer with imposter syndrome?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think there's anyone that doesn't, whatever gender they identify with. But I think women do have more confidence challenges. It's not surprising because we're so critiqued in every kind of manner, from growing up through to kind of being in the workplace. There's lots of evidence that shows that favourable characteristics that male colleagues show are more poorly rated when it comes to a female, and actually you get almost punished for some characteristics. So yeah, it's really
I know which ones you're talking about.
Yeah, you know exactly the ones that
And on that, I actually think that those characteristics that we get punished for are our strengths. So can you talk through what strengths you think women have and why we should be in leadership? Because we've got some incredible strengths, as do men, and that's why I think it should be an equal level playing field. But what are those points?
Yeah, so I think women are just people, and we're socialised in different ways. So we're socialised to definitely emphasise the kind of empathetic element, the kind of caring element, which is incredibly important in any organisation. It means that you kind of consider the people around you and consider how to kind of get the best outcomes out of people. And I think we are moving to a space where kind of a modern leader is someone that naturally does that and shows some vulnerability willingness to kind of collaborate with lots of different departments and different people across different companies, and actually bring people together, which I think is an incredibly important strength. And I think also kind of the emphasis on knowing how important it is to be included. If you're someone who's experienced firsthand exclusion, which, you know, by default, because of the society we live in, women often have, you know, on a day-to-day basis experience some sort of exclusion or discrimination. They know how it feels, and therefore they're very considered to make sure that people are included. Generally speaking, you know, we are people, so everyone's different. You can't speak for the masses. But.
Yeah, definitely. And to your first point, saying the vulnerability that women show, and sales is definitely changing. It's becoming an industry that's less boiler room environment, a lot more consultative. People buy from people, and I think they enjoy seeing people's personalities. And I spoke with one of the members of our communities recently, and she was saying being yourself is your most powerful USP, because there is only one you. And that emotional side and vulnerability that women express so well, and also to that point, men do as well. Yeah. Why do you think it's seen as a negative? Because there are so many positive connotations towards it that can make you such more of an empathetic empath and a great leader.
Yeah, I think people just haven't necessarily got with the program yet. So if you kind of think 10 years ago, it wasn't normal to kind of bring your whole self to work or bring the vulnerable bits. It was actually about kind of covering that up and trying to hide those imperfections. And we've actually seen a lot of transformation in the last 10, even 5 years. And obviously the COVID crisis meant that, you know, workplaces couldn't help but ask people to bring themselves to work because they were just going through so many different things. I think that's definitely fast-tracked the emphasis, but not every environment is appropriate to bring that through. You know, you've got to feel safe, and there's got to be psychological safety, and you've got to know that you're not going to get any kind of retribution or punishment. There is also such a thing as oversharing. You don't always need to be really vulnerable, and that can be a bit too much. And I think it's just about being authentic to you, thinking about the environment that you're around and what's necessary and important for the people that you're working with. And as you said, kind of thinking about what your USP is. What is it that your natural strengths are? And you might not be an empathetic leader. You may be feeling going, oh, that's not me at all. And I actually struggle with that. And in fact, I'm often called bossy or whatever. That's also fine, you know, just adapting to the environment that you have, but also finding an environment that's appropriate for the strengths you bring, so that you're seen as an asset, is really, really important. Oh yeah, definitely. And I think that's such an important point that you raised, that some people don't have that empathetic side. We're all individual. There's only one us, and it's all around just playing to your individual strengths, like you said so well. So managing your team, Sim, what things do you do within Octopus Moneycoach to really support and empower and uplift both the men and women in your business, to hopefully give them that opportunity, and also to give them the ability to see that they could step up into management? Yeah, that's a really good question. So I've literally just come from running a workshop around communication styles. Amazing. Asking everyone to kind of get into groups, find their tribe, their natural kind of home, and then talking about the things they love about the way each other works and the things that are more challenging. We try to do a lot of that in the organisation because it's incredibly important that we're conscious of the strengths that we bring as a collective. And we were having a good laugh kind of looking at, what if you were just working only with your tribe, you know, what are the things that would go wrong? And we had all the very outgoing, loud, expressive people go, oh, it would just be chaos, and there's so much energy. We need some more analytical people to help us get stuff done, or think things through. Calm us down, bring us back to there's too much energy here. So it was a really funny session. And you know, for me, it's I'm very, very I'm very enthusiastic and supportive about career development. I think it's top of mind. It should be. And often people struggle to kind of put themselves first, especially women actually. You know, they often don't know what they want, and they're not used to people asking them, what do you want to do? Where do you want to get to? And that's okay. But kind of having regular conversations and safeguarding time to actually talk about the aspirations and work through what is it that gives you energy, what do you love doing, what are the things you love doing less, and thinking about job crafting to help people then explore different career paths, because I'm a real believer in being able to kind of move around rather than just go up or just go sideways.
The squiggly career.
Yeah. Helen Tuffer, what a lady. And it's so important because that's really empowering as well. You know, we're in an environment where the gig economy is becoming a real thing. People have lots of different elements to their careers, and that's a beautiful thing. And it's fantastic for women, especially, who obviously at some point often take time out to care for loved ones.
Yeah, definitely. And with that, I think working with your colleagues, one thing that I would love to talk about today is empowering your colleagues to have that confidence in themselves, because as women, and again, this could be a stereotype, but we often apologize before we've even started. I'm always doing this. I go into a room and I'll say, sorry, can I just have a moment? Why did I say sorry? I had the right to be there. Or you'll be invited to speak on a panel and you'll say, oh, so honoured, flattered to be here. Don't know why I've been invited. And so you're already putting that doubt in people's minds before you've even opened your mouth. And you could be the most incredible leader, the most incredible sales rep, and have so much knowledge to share that people want to listen to. But because you've put that negative comment at the beginning, you've lost people. So what would you say to those that are out there and listening and thinking, oh God, I do that? What? Because I think that really will help women have more confidence to be able to drive them into those bigger career paths and develop in their career.
Yeah, I think, well, hopefully we're getting past the point where you say kind of one thing that you belittle yourself, you apologise, and people go, oh, well, that person's no good. And that, I think that's even a mindset shift, actually being open-minded and allowing people to make multiple first impressions rather than going, oh, Izzy's just apologised, well, she must be rubbish. It's just not the case, right? And I think it's a very British thing as well. We're terribly apologetic, and where, you know, it's all about kind of making yourself smaller almost to not offend people. But it's definitely a habitual thing. I think being conscious of how much you actually do that and trying to notice it, and maybe asking for allyship with colleagues. So, Izzy, I'm trying to work on not minimizing my feelings or not minimizing what I'm saying or not apologizing. Can you help me in the next meeting and notice when I'm doing it, write them down and help me realize what I've said, so that you can kind of help me be accountable. You know, maybe every time I say sorry, I have to buy you a drink.
Or you have a sorry jar.
That would be a great time in the pub, to be fair. But
Should we go to the pub after this?
Exactly. But actually kind of recruiting people to support you and being honest about what the one thing you're trying to work on. You can't, if you just list out all the things you're trying to work on, it's going to be quite difficult and hard to move the needle, but just pick the one thing. And also, you know, if you apologise or you minimise a lot, you know, you can notice I'm saying just, and if lots of mediators within what I'm saying, that is a habitual kind of pattern that we have, and there are reasons that you do that in your speech, and it means that some people will like what you're saying and buy into it, and some people might go, oh, sounds a bit wishy-washy, and that might be okay. You know, not everyone's gonna like you.
You can't please everyone.
Exactly.
It's so true.
And you've got to find an environment that suits you, and also craft that environment to kind of suit others around you as well.
Definitely. Another point that I'd love to touch on, Sim, is women sometimes can feel that they've got to give in to unconscious bias, especially in a male-dominated situation, if they might be the only female in their organisation. So what advice would you give to companies to eradicate this unconscious bias and create and foster a culture that's very inclusive and welcoming to anyone that enters?
I've definitely been in situations where I'm the minority or like the only female in the room, and suddenly you can feel quite self-conscious because you realise you're like hashtag representing the whole of all women everywhere, and it's like it's a lot of pressure and you're just one person. And
it's the worst when they go, oh, you're a woman, what do you think about this? It's like, what? Talk for every woman.
I have no idea. I have no opinions on that topic. But I think, well, first of all, hopefully when you're being recruited into a role, it can be quite a frank conversation about that scenario. You know, it would be not very nice to be the only person that's a female if you didn't know that was the case. So I think it's actually really important for employers to be upfront about that, and it's something that wherever there was a first of anything in my previous roles, I've always brought people in to kind of show them the environment or talked about it openly, because there's nothing worse than being surprised and not being up for it.
Yeah,
that's just really awkward. So I think that's one thing. We can't get rid of an unconscious bias. It's there for lots of reasons. The brain chunks information to be able to kind of cope with the complexity of the world, but being aware of the times that bias can creep in. For example, where you're selecting who does a sales lead go to, or who works on this particular project or with this particular client, or who's going to go to that event and speak. Questioning how you actually pick your teams or how you typically work as a group to kind of identify the best people to do things is really important, and trying to identify different criteria that's a bit more objective will certainly help. And I think having conversations about the fact that we're trying to be an inclusive environment, that therefore means these things are good, and these things are what we're trying to do, and these are the things that we're not going to do, and we're going to try and call each other out or support each other to identify when we're slipping back into those bad habits if it's a cultural transformation. And I think it's really about being self-aware and having, again, that psychological safety to be able to have frank conversations. If you are the only woman in your workplace or in your team, you might not feel comfortable even really talking about that because you're just trying to fit in. And we've also all been there, where you just got to play along a little bit, and understand when's the right time to speak up. And it can be when you get that second female colleague, that third female colleague, or at least have some role models or training that gives you a platform to actually talk about a topic, because it can feel incredibly scary bringing something up and being that kind of only person.
And you feel isolated, and it's really nice to have your tribe around you and people that you feel comfortable. But even having, like you mentioned before, those allies, those male allies in the company, and identifying who they are, and it's brilliant to be able to talk openly to them because they can also invoke that change. I really would love to know a couple of points from your experience and being in the industry for as long as you have and being in management. What are some points and some tips that people can take away to attract and retain more female talent? Because I think to get into leadership positions, you've got to start from the beginning. So you can't just hire a female head of sales or a director of sales. You have to be hiring the SDR team, the AE team. So just quickly, a couple of points that you would share.
Of course. So I think there are lots of different points. I think there is a good point there, of course, hiring in talent at the start and growing them through is the best way to develop any company or leadership pipeline. But sometimes you do need to make a call to bring in a senior female, and there's a really good reason for that, or a senior person, no matter what gender, but being open to kind of when that's an appropriate thing. And also being aware of the level of support that person might need to be successful, and it might be twice as much support as you normally give, or a very different onboarding program. From an SDR, from a sales perspective, I think it's really, really important. My background is in psychology and talent assessment. You need to be objective with the criteria that you're actually identifying, and look at it through a really neutral lens and try and identify, are there any biases here? Are we only picking people from certain tech backgrounds, from certain competitors or big organizations whose names we all know? And actually, is that meaning that we only ever get a shortlist that's actually just happens to be men? And oh gosh, they're all white men actually. And being really strict with that shortlist. So making sure that if you're working with a recruitment partner, like why is there it's clear that you want to have that diverse shortlist, and being clear that then when you're working through what you're actually looking for and the interview process, you're much more likely, if you've got some people in there that are female, to actually end up hiring females.
100%.
There's nothing more tiring than hearing, well, we're just hiring the best people for the job, but actually you're not being active with the sourcing. And it's just a really long short list of men. And absolutely, that they're an amazing bunch of people who come through different types of shortlists. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be really, really prescriptive, but it's important to be clear from the offset. The other thing is, having clear competencies that you're looking at, and making sure that your selection process actually involves people of different genders and backgrounds is very important. Again, nothing worse than kind of coming in and feeling like you're, as a female coming into sales, it's just an all-male panel, no one that looks like you, and you kind of do the walk through the office, and also no one looks like you. just not appealing.
You can't see yourself there.
Yeah,
you want to be able
you
to
literally
visualize
can't see
yourself.
yourself there.
Yeah, for sure.
And then when you bring people through, actually having kind of mentorship programs, making sure that you connect them with more senior females, even if they're not in sales, will really help. I definitely advocate mentoring, also networking events and external events where you don't have that pool of talent. I know it's not always possible, but that's where partners like Wiser can be fantastic, because you've got these amazing groups of people and communities that you can tap into that give you loads of ideas and loads of mental strength to kind of think about things in a different way and bring new ideas through.
Brilliant answer. I promise I didn't tell her to say that, but thank you so much, Sim. All of your advice was so helpful. So one thing that I ask each guest is to come with a failure or challenge that they faced in their career, something that's been a pinnacle moment and what they learnt from it and how they developed. Sales Unfiltered is all around showing the truth behind sales. So Sim, what is your one moment?
Yeah, I think my one moment is I used to work for an organisation that was acquired by another company, and then it was being sold, and it was a really difficult moment for our clients and also for our people and my sales teams at the time. It was really difficult for lots of reasons, because I couldn't give any certainty to people. Clients were asking what it meant for them, people were asking what it meant for them, and I didn't really know. And I learned that it was really, really important to just be very honest about that scenario, and that we were all going through it together. I think I was really used to kind of being kind of giving reassurance and telling, you know, organisations exactly what they could expect. And this time I couldn't give that reassurance, and it felt really uncomfortable and really was very challenging from a personal perspective. But during that time, I learned to just be honest and talk about things really transparently, and that actually people really appreciate that. And it meant that we could work together and kind of make the most of the situation, focus on some near-term goals, and keep on focusing on, you know, bringing on great new clients, delivering the services we were delivering to those organisations. And then, you know, we got through it once we were sold. It was a really good news story.
Amazing. And I'm sure your employees trusted you so much more because you were being really honest and vulnerable with that, and not just sugarcoating it and telling them what they wanted to hear. You were being real. And I think building that trust is such an important thing in management. And definitely more people should be like you with doing that. So well done. But Sim, thank you so much for coming to chat to us today. I've absolutely loved this discussion, and hopefully people listening at home, this will inspire you to step up into management if you are a female, because it's a great career choice and we definitely need more women in those positions.
There is one more stat I'll add that SHL found when they studied all of the different contextual factors that leaders come up against, and there are 27 of them. They found that 21 of those 27 challenges are best solved by females.
Yes, it is.
From a potential perspective. So it's not that we're not getting there for some other reasons, apart from the fact that we're not given these opportunities. So
well, if that's not your inspiration, then I don't know what is. But thank you so much, Sim. It's been great to chat.